got a internship at the Royal Disney Production Center. Got to meet George Lucas, Shark Tank, What Not to Wear. Well, I'm not a voiceover artist per se, although I do get thrown into the mix, pun intended. Recently, I finished doing sound design for an Elton John metaverse experience. It was the largest metaverse concert at the time. You cannot sound like you're reading. I did Coca-Cola's first NFT. That NFT sold for $500,000. I didn't get to see any of that money. I do sound design, of course, recording, editing, voiceover casting, original music, music augmentation, conceptualizing radio spots and campaigns, podcasting, noise reduction, everything. When did I start using Source Connect? I think when Source Connect started. Everyone by now needs to know how to use whatever method of remotely connecting are. The world advances, so keep up with it. At this point, I would say everyone and their mom can learn how to use Pro Tools, Source Connect, do some sound design, but what can you bring to the table that's different? Less pay to play. My name is Zach Hahn. I'm a sound designer and owner of Audio Expert here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Source Elements.
What's my favorite microphone? What would I recommend to use? Well, probably this Neumann U87 right here, this bad boy. It's probably one of my favorite purchases of 2022, and I'm so happy I got it. It was an upgrade from my Sennheiser 416, which was an amazing mic, but this U87, man, this is the voiceover mic. This is the mic for animation, the mic for, great vocals for singing, and just all things voiceover. So I'm really happy I got it, and it's my workhorse and also my talkback mic. Which headphones do I use, and what would I recommend as the audio expert? Well, it would probably have to be my Audeze headphones. I have them right here. These are the Audeze LCDX headphones. They're open back and they sound amazing. I actually use these probably about 50% of the time versus my main Focal monitors, but they're open back, which means you don't have a lot of isolation if you're in a public area. Don't use these at an airport. You're going to hear everything outside of them, but the open back feature makes it so the bass develops more and it's not trapped inside of this little cone in your ear. So these are more accurately represent sound. That's why I love them. Am I a Mac or PC user? Well, both, but really Mac when it comes to work. As a sound designer and when I record and produce voiceovers, I am on a Mac all the way. Nothing is more stable than a Mac with Pro Tools and Logic and all those tools that I use to do my trade. I love working on a Mac with all that. Just basic things like pressing space to preview files, how just zipping files on a Mac works. It's just so much easier than a PC, in my opinion, for doing my day job. But I am a huge PC fanboy when it comes to gaming. I am a big gamer. I pretty much every night play video games, and I do it on my supercomputer PC, which Macs can't even keep up with. What is my favorite place on Earth? Well, that is actually an easy one for me. It would be Seoul, South Korea. My husband and then a friend of mine also went to Seoul together a couple times on two different basically 2 weeks trips, and it was my favorite place in the world. Just exploring. We had no itinerary. We didn't do any guided tours or anything. We just landed in Seoul and then just walked around until we found stuff to do. And I'll tell you what, it's like stepping 10 years into the future. It's just beautiful, it's safe, it's vibrant, there's so much food and clothes. It was a blast for someone like me. What was my last software or hardware purchase? Well, my Neumann U87 was a big one, but also I recently purchased an iPad Pro. It is my extended monitor display. I have it down here. You can't really see it, but I use it for my sound effects search engines. I use it as when I'm doing a Source Connect session. I keep my Source Connect window up down there, and I use it as a just way to view plugins and stuff like that. It's great because it integrates so well with my Mac Studio. If I could meet one person, who would that be? Well, I don't really have a person like that. Maybe some old school engineers, maybe Brian Eno. Just not really for tips of the trade, but just to asked him a few questions about what it was like recording these famous bands and producing them. What is my favorite digital audio workstation? This one is super easy. It is Pro Tools all the way. I know there are a lot of haters on Pro Tools out there, and it's not as easy to learn as some other DAWs, and it's very finicky, prone to crash, but it is the workhorse for audio post-production. I wouldn't use any other DAW for that. You can just do so much more with routing and editing audio with surgical ways than you can with like Ableton or Reaper or Propeller Head Reason or anything else like that. I do also use Logic. Logic is great for composing. Logic is the kingpin when it comes to MIDI. I love using Logic for soft synths and stuff like that, but once I'm done composing, pop it all into Pro Tools. What is the scariest thing I've ever done? Well, that's also kind of an easy one. It was starting Audio Expert. I was working at a very renowned studio here in Atlanta for almost a decade, and it was my time to shine. I broke away and started my own shop, and it was terrifying. I was afraid that I would drift into oblivion and be working on my favorite band that's in a garage or something like that, or short indie student films. I was afraid that I would never be working on big national projects and campaigns, but I persevered. I kept fighting and I kept working and growing, and I'm still working on those national campaigns and still winning those beautiful awards that I still had to pay for, but I have them, whatever. What is the latest series I have watched? I would have to say Black Mirror. It's an amazing show. I highly recommend it. What is a normal day for me as a sound designer? Well, I woke up like this, and then I came down to my basement, and then I press buttons and pretend I know what I'm doing. Well, that's kind of a joke. I do know a little bit about what I'm doing, but it's really fun. It's great to work out of my own house in this beautiful basement. It's not just a basement, and I'm not just a guy in their basement. This is a wonderful broadcast-ready studio that I had custom built and designed myself. It's a dream to wake up and come down here and just work all day on some of my favorite content. Is there a quote that motivates me? No, but I will say that I've got a problem with that word motivation. I don't think it's a real thing. I think that there's inspiration, but motivation that comes from within. You need to just get up and do it. You're not going to find that motivation. You might be inspired one day by something you saw that makes you do something, but that motivation comes from within, and it's a little bit of self-discipline. You just gotta grind. You gotta go for it. What would be my favorite birthday celebration? Well, it would probably be just getting all my friends and family together. As you get older, you realize that your friends and family are the most important things in your life, and you wish you get to see them more. Every year that goes by, you think those friends, like, how many more years am I going to get to see them? I see them maybe once a year, and how many more years do we all have left? Am I going to see them 20 more times, 30 more times? It's sad to think about. So I would just love to see everyone get together and hang out. What would I like to be famous for as a sound designer? That's a tough one. Probably sound design? No, I really would like to just create some sort of impact in really, I don't know, anyway. I am a sound designer. I do a lot of art on the side, music, 2D art, but I am also a volunteer in my local community. I'm just trying to create some sort of impact, some sort of legacy of, hey, Zach Hahn is this person that existed. He created a lot of content that people enjoyed and created a lot of laughs for people, and I just want it to be rememberable, and I just want it to be memorable in some sort of way. A little about myself as a sound designer. Well, my name is Zach Hahn. I am 32 years old. I was born and raised in Lafayette, Indiana, in the middle of cornfields, and there were no opportunities there, so I knew what I wanted to do by the age of 15 or 16, which was a blessing and a curse. When you know you want to do sound, you kind of do less math and sciencey stuff. So once I got accepted into Full Sail University in Winter Park, Florida to get a recording arts bachelor degree, I kind of put the math and science to the side and focused more on learning Pro Tools, DAWs, how to record, all that stuff. And I'm lucky because I knew what I wanted to do when I was very young, but it was a journey. And after graduating Full Sail, I got a internship at the Royo Disney Production Center, which is a really cool audio post facility that's actually in the Disney park. So I worked there as an intern, got to meet George Lucas. Then from there, I went into audio production. I was a field recordist on reality TV shows like Shark Tank, What Not to Wear, just any of those random shows that would come through the state of Florida at the time. I realized that I didn't like driving to sets every day. Going to the office, picking up my boom and lav, and then driving out to some random set in the state of Florida. It's very draining, long hours, and I learned that I liked more of a 9-to-5 vibe, going to the same place. So that's when I got into audio post-production, and there was this thing called the Florida Film Tax Incentive that basically didn't get renewed, and there are a lot of production people like me that ended up migrating to Atlanta, where there is a tax incentive, and that's where my post-production journey started. And I worked for about a decade in Atlanta in sound design, and then I started Audio Expert, which is where I am now. How did I start in the voiceover industry? Well, I'm not a voiceover artist per se, although I do get thrown into the mix, pun intended. I do a lot of sound design and mixing for TV shows, commercials, film, radio spots, and I have a lot of producer friends and clients that will ask me, hey, Zach, do you know a good voice for this? And when you have been working with voiceover talent for over a decade, you meet a lot of people, and you end up knowing a good voice for this. So I found myself scouting out talent a lot and connecting voices to voice buyers, and that's basically how I got into the voiceover community. And on top of that, I voice a lot of scratch reads for radio spots and video games and stuff like that. And sometimes the producer will fall in love with my scratch read, and I'll end up on the air. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I think I sound weird. Do I have an agent? No, but maybe listen to my voice and book me. What current projects do I have going on right now? Well, basically all of them are NDA. I mean, it's a lot of really cool stuff. Recently, I finished doing sound design for an Elton John Metaverse experience. It was the largest Metaverse concert at the time. It was a lot of fun and very stressful to work on. Right now, I'm doing a Shopify radio campaign, a couple of them, and a couple of them actually voicing, which is cool. On top of that, I'm doing an indie film and a lot more Metaverse content that I can't talk about quite yet. What is a memorable moment in voice acting that I've had in the past? Well, it wasn't necessarily voice acting, it was more of the voiceover community. My sister-in-law and her young family basically lost their house in an Oregon wildfire, and I sent out a GoFundMe to the voiceover community, and you all answered their cry for help, and I'm very appreciative of that, and I'm thankful for this amazing community that came out to not support me, but just my family in general. How do I approach a new voice acting role and bring a character to life? Well, like I said, I'm not entirely a voice actor, although I do get thrown into the mix. I think it's really important to just understand and connect to the script. You cannot sound like you're reading. You have to be able to analyze the script, understand maybe perspectives, people's intentions of the characters. You really have to connect with it. It cannot be you reading a piece of paper, because it will sound like you reading a piece of paper. How do I balance staying true to a character's original voice while making the role my own? Well, I've not really had that opportunity. The projects I've voiced are not really character driven. They're more just regular voiceovers, but really it's listening to that director and analyzing the script and knowing what the intentions are. Of course, you're hired for your take on this, but you are also hired by a creative team that has really thought out this project. So listen to them, listen to their feedback, make sure you're following their direction. What is the most unique or unusual voice acting request I've gotten? Well, basically it's sound-alikes. There's a lot of requests where I will get, this person needs to sound like Morgan Freeman or David Attenborough. Well, those are famous voices, and they're famous for a reason because of how much character they bring to a script. And that's just hard to emulate and hard to recreate. So sometimes these clients are asking for a little too much. You need to get the budget to hire the big guys. What's a very challenging and rewarding voice actor role that I've had in the past? Well, I'd have to say I did Coca-Cola's first NFT, and in that NFT, there's a sip and an ah. Well, that's me sipping and ah-ing in that NFT, and that NFT sold for $500,000. I didn't get to see any of that money. It went to a good cause, the Special Olympics, which I'm happy with. But yeah, it wasn't very challenging, but it was a unique experience for me to bust out my sippin'. One of the projects that I have enjoyed the most in my career would have to be the recent Metaverse project I did. It was an Elton John Metaverse experience beyond the Yellow Brick Road for his farewell tour, and there was a virtual concert inside of a Metaverse environment. It was the largest concert in the world at the time on the Metaverse, but has since been dethroned, but I'm not upset about it. I'm so happy for being part of the journey. In that project, I had to create little mixes or interludes paying homage to his songs. So I was given the original Pro Tools sessions of these songs, like I'm Still Standing and Rocket Man. These are some old songs, and it was so cool to hear the individual tracks and splits. I mean, you can hear people moving, paper, sheet music turning, and stuff like that. It was just really magical to have those original files. It felt like I was in the room recording it, and then to get the opportunity to take those files and make something new with it, with modern synths. And the best part is that it was approved. That means Elton John and his team listened to it and they liked it, and it went to the Metaverse. What would I have done differently if I could have gone back in time? I would have started Audio Expert like 5 years earlier. I was always pushed by my husband to go on my own journey, and it's hard to gauge your own self-worth. You kind of think, oh, I'm just this worker guy, I'm this grunt, but really I bring a lot to the table, and I didn't realize that. So 3 years ago, I started Audio Expert. I wish I could say it was 10 years ago I started Audio Expert. All right, let's get nerdy about the techie stuff. Home studios and remote recording. Do I have my own studio? Well, what is this? Yes, I do. It's in my basement, but I'm not just a guy in their basement. I have a broadcast-ready home studio that I designed myself and had built. It's amazing. I use earth wool instead of Owen Corning 703. Which is treated with formaldehyde, which is a lung irritant. So you voiceover people out there probably don't want to have lung irritants as your sound dampening panels. So earth wool is carbon negative. It's made of sand, and it's great. That's what I made my studio out of. What kind of services does Audio Expert offer? All things audio. I'm a turnkey sound design studio. I do sound design, of course, recording, editing, voiceover casting, original music, music augmentation, conceptualizing radio spots and campaigns, podcasting, noise reduction, everything sound related I do right here in the studio. Do I record outside of the studio? Well, sometimes I will book talent at a remote studio. Basically, if they're traveling and they're on a vacation in New York and they need a booth, I'll hit up a place that I have a partnership with and book them in their booth. But I don't like going out and recording remotely. I was previously a field recordist with the Lav and the Boom, and you get real tired of going out on set. Maybe you might not, but I did, and I like sitting right in this chair. Remote working. What percentage of work is remote in my studio? Well, all of it. When I started Audio Expert, the goal was to be strictly remote. That being said, I do maybe 5 times a year have a client or producer or voice actor come down here and work with me, but my goal is remote because that is an option. We don't need to all have 7 people in a room ordering lunch, sitting together with everyone throwing their hat in the ring on what they think a sound effect should sound like. It's way better of a workflow for me to do my thing, keep my nose down, grind on these mixes, and then send them out. And these producers can sit in their homes or in their offices and review on headphones or laptops, which is how 99% of the consumers of the world hear my mixes. So they don't need to be sitting in front of these nice focals or these Audeze headphones. They don't need any of that. Everyone's going to be listening off of a laptop or headphones. That's what the consumers are viewing your content on. So that's kind of what you mix for. Although I do have a nice sound system in here, ultimately it's going to be played on those truncated devices. So it's good to have clients review on those to know what it will sound like in the end. When did I start using Source Connect? I think when Source Connect started. This was back when I was at a sound studio in Atlanta, and we were one of the first adopters of Source Connect in our city, and I think in the US. I have no idea, but lucky for me, I'm a little bit techie, so all that port forwarding stuff was easy for me to figure out, while everyone else had to hire IT Comcast to figure it out. But since then, Source Connect has been so much more easy to work with and stable, and they've grown a lot, and their support is really helping voiceover talent ramp up with their home studios with some of this more techie setup type stuff. So I am definitely an early adopter of Source Connect, and I love Source Connect because you can do everything right at your computer. I am so used to ISDN and hardware phone patches where you got to run over to a machine room and dial in some numbers twice, so wait to see if it locks, and then run over to your control room and be like, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Well, with Source Connect, you don't have to do any of that. You sit right here, connect, you see the connection, you see the levels bouncing back and forth, and luckily with Source Connect, it's supported. ISDN is just grandfathered in, and it is being very phased out. So jump on that Source Connect bandwagon while you still can. How do I communicate with clients while working remotely? Literally this. I have my camera set up, my U87 as my talkback, and I've got all this piped in through Meets and Zoom, and we connect virtually and talk with each other. And I use things like Source Nexus to be able to play my mixes out of Pro Tools to clients in real time for them to hear and review stuff. Walking through the process of recording and delivering voiceover files. So first, I start off with the voiceover casting. I'll interface with the client, figure out their budget, their direction, the usage of the project, and then once we lock that in and agree upon rates and the usage, I will then reach out to my talent pool of over 600 voices and gather auditions. And once I get those auditions, I will present them to the client, and they pick their voice. And from there, I reach out to the awarded talent and book them in their studio or a local studio or at my studio, and we patch in the producer via Source Nexus with Google Meets or Zoom, and they listen real time to what is almost full fidelity patch through Source Nexus being piped out of my DAW Pro Tools, and I'm remotely connected via Source Connect to the talent. So I'm hearing them in full fidelity, piping them through Google Meets via Source Nexus. So it's close to full fidelity. It's the best we can do without making clients set up Source Connect on their laptops. We don't want to make the clients work. We work for them. What advice would I give to clients that are new to remote recording? Probably get with the program. It's been remote for like 3 years now. We've all been doing the same stuff. You need to get your Apple earbuds. You need to learn how to hook those up into your laptop and figure out how to get your mic going, because everyone by now needs to know how to use Meets or Zoom or whatever method of remotely connecting are. The world advances, so keep up with it. How has Source Connect impacted my work process? I mean, 100% it has. I have the ability to, as a feature, sell remote sessions to clients. I have Source Connect. I connect in full fidelity to voiceover talent. I do ADR sessions via Source Connect, RTS, and it's been great. I mean, this is a whole feature that I have that I can offer as a business that wasn't a possibility before with things like ISDN, where I'm in a brand new 2019 house that could never get ISDN. So I have the ability to do all this stuff. What's a particularly challenging thing about remote working? Well, I just have to say Um, Possibly none. I mean, it's just governing your own time. It takes a certain type of person to, wake up on time and roll out of bed and come down here and work. And when you are remote all the time, it's easy to get distracted doing the laundry or cleaning, but you gotta stick to work. So just being disciplined is the toughest part of remote working. What was my favorite Source Connect remote session? I'd have to say I did one of my childhood best friends is a rapper. It's actually one of the inspirations to start my career. His name is DeMarcus, and we would always record together when we were 14 and 15, putting comforters over our heads and trying to dampen the sound in a way, just coming up with bizarre ways to get better sound. And that's what really inspired me to pursue my career. But he moved to Atlanta a few years after I did, and I was able to connect him with Lifetime Television Network for a commercial that they wanted a rapper for, and basically they asked him to come in and freestyle on the mic with no topic, no anything, and they wanted to know his chops at rapping. So we connected via Source Connect to a studio in New York where there was a room full of producers, and let him do his whole thing, and he ended up winning a national ad campaign where he is rapping in the commercial. Industry diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's a few times where I felt somewhat discriminated against or faced a bias in the community, and those more had to do with my age, surprisingly. I'm gay and I'm married to my husband, and that is usually something that people have celebrated in the entertainment industry. We're all very like-minded in that way, and understanding that love is love, but the problems I face are my age. People see a young person and think, oh, he doesn't have the experience or know-how, or I can't really trust him like I can this older guy with a beard that's sitting in front of their computer chair. And it's been really difficult for me to overcome. I think that the tides are changing a little bit, and that now producers and creative directors are looking for that X factor. And at this point, I would say everyone and their mom can learn how to use Pro Tools, Source Connect, do some sound design, but what can you bring to the table that's different? That's my X factor, is that I'm creative and I like to throw ideas into the mix. And if there's a moment where I can create a joke or an emotion with sound, I'll go for it. And that's what I bring to the table that I think some of the older guys that are the traditional guys don't. I think they are just more workhorses. So I try to bring that X factor to the table to overcome that bias of age. How do I approach representing diverse voices in the community? Well, by doing exactly that, representing diverse voices in the community. I will commonly get a casting request, and they won't mention race or age, but I will, give them plenty of options. I'm not going to give them a casting pool for a national spot that's just all white folks or something like that. I'm going to have some different types of voices there and different walks of life, and it's just giving them the opportunity for their voices to be heard and not being a gatekeeper on work. There is a need for different voices. That's why voice acting exists. If the clients wanted the same voice they used last time, they wouldn't be hiring me to do a casting. They would just hit up the old person. So just keep open-minded to out-of-the-box ideas with voices. Sometimes the narrator doesn't always have to be a guy. It could be a female gendered voice. It could be a younger voice. Just keep open-minded. It will also be more entertaining if it's less predictable. So just do different things, try different things. What changes would I like to see in the voice acting industry to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion? Less pay to play. That would be it. There's a lot of pay to play websites out there for voice acting, and some of them get up to $5,000 a year just to make sure your client hears your voice, and that is not okay. I think that is wrong, and that we should get away from that. And I don't think anyone should be paying that much money to just be auditioning for a client. How do I feel about representation in the voiceover community? There's work to be done. I have seen in the past 10 years dramatic change in a very good direction. It's great to imagine how much further that can go, just to hear a big range of voices, and everyone wants to hear that. No one wants to hear the same voice over and over again. We want a diverse pool of voices. That's why voice acting exists. How do I approach networking in the voiceover community? Well, by networking. I go to voiceover conventions, meet with people, bring a ton of business cards, and kind of just be nice, be a yes person in a way, do favors for people. I've had voiceover talent that have given me amazing clients just from booking them on a project, and usually I don't get projects from voiceover talent, but that talent mentioned to a creative director that I'm a great sound designer, and an amazing relationship came from that. So help people out. Go out on a limb for them, because doing that little favor might come back in a great way. A particularly challenging voiceover role I had was honestly this recent Shopify campaign that I did the scratch voiceover for and ended up being in the final. I am not a voiceover actor by any means, so when I am doing a more of a character voice like that, that is not what I'm used to. I'm used to giving direction and feedback, and I can hear the voice in my head, not in a bad way, but I can hear these voices in my head that are how the read is supposed to sound, and I try to coach the talent to get to that. So that's a lot harder when I'm the voice, because I don't really know how to control my mouth in that sort of way that a trained professional could. So voicing that spot in that campaign for Shopify was really tough for me, because it required me to do a lot of takes and a lot of almost training on the fly to get my voice up to close enough to par of a real professional. What do I think sets a successful voiceover artist apart from everyone else? Well, it's just how they work. It's their branding, it's their attitude, it's their professionalism, it's the full package. One thing I do love to see is voiceover talent that have their own website domain. It makes me feel like they're more established. I get nervous when I see @gmail.com or @yahoo.com, because it makes me think that maybe they haven't quite invested the time and effort into their career of buying a website, setting it up, setting up an email server. It just makes me feel like they're half in it. But it's the attitude that is the most important. Just being flexible with clients. It is feast or famine, and it is all trial by fire, and it never really slows down. Things are so on the fly, and you'll get last minute scripts. You'll get a script that changed the hour after you did the voiceover record. Just understand, I'm the middleman, I'm the message guy. I'm just trying to please my clients, but I'm also trying not to ruffle feathers with voiceover talent. So please understand that it's tough all around, and just be flexible, because we're all in this together. And when you're flexible like that, honestly, you're more likely to be booked, because you're just easy to work with. Stuff changes. This is a interesting industry, and I think we all know how it works, and things catch on fire, and you got to put out a bunch of fires all the time. So just understand that it's tough, and just say yes. And if a client gives you a direction that you're like, well, that's dumb, show them why it's dumb. Just do the read for them. Do it how they asked, and they'll hear it, and they'll realize it sounds dumb after you do it. So don't just say no, just try it for them. Show them why it's dumb. Well, that is all from me, your audio expert, Zach Hahn, here in Atlanta, Georgia. I hope to hear more from you. I love Source Connect, and I will keep using it on the daily. Peace.
Source Elements.